The year is 1994. We have just seen a rough cut of the film The Santa Claus, and we're going to fix it. Cue that intro.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Mirror Movie Universe podcast. My name is Dan, and across the island, across the country from me is my co-host Nate. Say hello, Nate.
Hey everybody. We reversed it this time. How do you like that?
Yeah, usually I do the intro, Nate talks about the movie, and we're flipping the script because I have seen this movie probably 100 times. Nate
And
saw
I
it
saw it 3 days
once.
ago. Yeah, I have never seen any of the Santa Claus films, and we're going to go through the series. It's new to me, so it would be absolutely frugal for me to, or futile for me to attempt to summarize this. That's up to Dan this week.
This is going to be really interesting because, like I said, I've seen them hundreds of times. We watch them every Christmas, back to back to back.
Yeah.
And somehow you have gone through life with never seeing any of them, despite being my brother. So,
nope. No, we didn't grow up watching these movies.
True.
Despite the fact that they were coming out during my childhood and during your teenage years, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
We just never did. We don't own any of them amongst our nuclear family, that we grew up in. And so they escaped me until this week.
Right now.
We're celebrating the holidays. And Dan was like, let's watch Santa Claus. And I was like, oh, okay. And I never seen it.
Yeah.
Dan, tell me about the Santa Claus.
Yeah. So to talk about the movie, what we like, what we don't like, what we want to fix. And we should say, for those new to the show, the fix is, as if we're movie producers, we can't remake the film. We can do a small edit or a reshoot or maybe a recasting, something like that. But the point is, it has to be something small. But to do any of that, we have to talk about the Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. So the Santa Claus opens with Tim Allen at a Christmas party. He's a toy executive, and we learn that he's great at his job. He's a sales manager here. He is a terrible father and a pretty bad husband because his wife divorced him. We're introduced to his son, who does not want to spend Christmas with him. That's Charlie, and his ex-wife, and Neil, the psychologist, who he constantly bickers with, and it's hilarious.
Delightful character. Oh, yeah.
He's so great. Judge Reinhold does fantastic. So Tim Allen is there with his son. It's Christmas Eve. He doesn't know what to do. He burns the turkey. They have to go to Denny's with all the other dads who burn the turkey, which is a really funny little moment. Finally, he's back with Charlie, and Charlie is about to go to sleep when they hear something on the roof. They go outside. What is it? It's Santa. He falls off the roof. Tim Allen puts on the suit and, by some strange legal clause, becomes the Santa Claus because he put on the suit. He spends the rest of the night going around feeling like America's Most Wanted, giving presents to kids, and Charlie goes with him. Eventually, they wind up in the North Pole where they meet Bernard, this very angry and mean elf.
Played by the guy from that TV show, Numb 3 Years.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is also, Bernard, the character, is like every middle school girl's first crush if they were around at the time of this movie. So enjoy that. Bernard tells him that he is the Santa Claus now. He will be Santa. He has a year to get his affairs in order, and promptly goes back about his business. We also meet Judy the elf, who gives him the perfect cup of hot cocoa with just a pinch of cinnamon.
Yep.
So eventually he wakes up the next morning. He's back in his bed and seems to think this is all a dream. Charlie has had a fantastic time and now really loves his dad and wants to spend time with him because he is Santa. So for the little bit of the movie now, we just go about Tim Allen's daily life. He's gaining weight. He's growing hair like crazy. He's just turning into Santa slowly over time. His ex-wife gets a little bit concerned about that, as any ex-wife would, and thinks that this is all just a ruse to get his son back. She says never in her wildest dreams would he, well, maybe her wildest, but never in her normal dreams would he actually go to such lengths. Eventually, his custody is taken away because, obviously, this is insane that he would do all of this just to get his son. At this point of the film, we have Bernard show back up. He gives Scott Calvin a snow globe, and Scott realizes that he is actually Santa. He goes off and takes Charlie with him and goes to the North Pole. At this point, the police freak out because they don't know he's Santa. They think he kidnapped his son. Mm-hmm. If there were Amber Alerts at this time, I'm sure the one would have been issued. So Charlie and him are off at the North Pole having a great time. They're scoping out the house. Eventually, he goes back to it and is arrested because they think that he kidnapped his son. Mm-hmm. Luckily, the elves come, they free him. He has a nice little moment with his ex-wife and Neil where he gives them gifts that they wanted when they were children and did not get, and they realize that he is actually Santa Claus. And then he and Charlie go off and deliver the presents to kids all around the world. And that's it. Roll credits. So... man, this is so hard to do. You do it every time, and
off the cuff every time. I don't even read notes for this section. It is, it takes a lot out of you. That's why I'm very glad that you go first after the recap, because it lets me catch my breath before we talk about what we like.
And I'm realizing that I left so much out. Mm-hmm. There's so many good jokes where he gets you're stung by a bee, a big bee. And hey, buddy, if it bothers you, you should diet. And you should diet. Yeah. There's so many great moments. But anyway, Nate, what do you love after watching Santa Claus one time?
Well, okay. So unlike you, I've never seen this movie before. I rather enjoyed it. I really liked the Santa Claus. I really, really enjoyed it. There's little things that I like. I like the personality of the presents that he gives at the end. They're not just like, here's a car. I feel like that's what they would do today. It's like, here's a car, and with a big bow, and they're like, oh, it's the new Kia Nissan sponsored this movie or whatever. But no, it's like, I don't remember what Neil gets, but it's
the Oscar Mayer weenie whistle.
The Oscar Mayer weenie whistle, and then the his ex-wife gets some like Mattel game from like the 70s, from when she was like a little kid, and that was really sweet. That's a little thing I liked, but mostly there is a personality to the story and a charm to the family dynamic that I really liked. It's not just a bunch of hokey magic stuff, and I like that it wasn't all at the North Pole. Like this movie, I vastly enjoyed that it was just about, like, it's not even about Santa Claus and the North Pole and magic. It's about the relationship of Scott Calvin and his son. Mm-hmm. That's what the movie is about. And like, if you think about the best holiday films in general, they're all, like really personal stories. Like It's a Wonderful Life is less about the spirit of Christmas and all this than it is about the one man learning a lesson about his life. Die Hard is less about the spirit of the robbery than it is one man learning how much pain he can endure while walking across glass. But I like how small the story is, and how much it's not, like there's Santa Claus jokes and gags, and they go to the North Pole and all this kind of stuff. But it's really just like a fun family drama. And if you swung too hard in the other direction, I don't think I'd like it nearly as much. But I really like this movie, and I like that it was like a self-contained little thing. It's about his relationship with him and his son, and that's great. But yeah, that's mostly what I liked about Santa Claus. I liked it very much. I enjoyed it. Dan, what did you like about the Santa Claus?
So I love this movie very, very much. Like I said, we watch it every Christmas. I think that all of the jokes are really, really funny. A lot of them land to this day, even though I've seen it 100 times. When he's talking to the doctor about how he's gaining weight, and the doctor's like, "What do you eat?" And he says, "Well, milk and cookies, but I don't finish the milk." Like, there's so many great jokes in it that are so good. And the Rose Suchik ladder, which is such a
Rose
play on words,
which is spelled Rose Suchik ladder, which is
and the climate
to that I like a lot. Yeah,
it's beautiful. I think that this is such a great representation of what Santa Claus is visually, It looks like Santa, and it answers so many questions that kids have about Santa. How does Santa get down the chimney? They answer it. What does he do when somebody doesn't have a fireplace? They answer it, right?
Yeah.
It's done so well. And I love the moments with Charlie and Neil when Neil's trying to convince Charlie that Santa doesn't exist, and Charlie knows he exists. And
Yeah.
so Neil's trying to logically be like, "Oh, have you ever seen a reindeer fly?" And then Charlie's like, "Well, have you ever seen $1 million?" Neil's like,
Mm-hmm.
"No." And he's like, "Well, how do you know that exists?" And it's just such a great moment.
Yeah. It's like the kid and his interactions with his mom and his stepdad and his dad are wonderful. And I like that the mom and the stepdad are like a part of that nuclear family and not adversarial for the rest of the series. That is one thing I like about this whole thing. It's still rather, rather friendly and inclusive and all of that kind of stuff. It's great. But yeah, I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, thank you. I think that just the look and feel of Santa, like if you were to say to somebody, like, show me a movie that shows me what Santa is,
Yeah.
I think that this is the perfect one. It shows you what he looks like, how he does stuff, what the North Pole is like with all the elves and everything. It's
Mm-hmm.
just so whimsical and funny.
Yeah.
And Tim Allen does a great job. Like, he does a really great job. He's very sarcastic and smarmy at the beginning, and then he's very charming as Santa at the end. Absolutely fantastic. I'm really glad you enjoyed it because I love this movie.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
But as much as we love it, we do need to fix it.
Yeah.
So, Nate, what is your fix for this movie?
God, as much as you praise Tim Allen, I've never really enjoyed his comedy chops. And that's probably because when I was in college, I was roommates with I was living in a house with a bunch of guys, and one of the guys constantly constantly watched Last Man Standing on TV. And so I think that I have through osmosis seen about every episode of that show, and I'm just very tired of Tim Allen in general. So a lot of the jokes don't land for me. And if I had infinite budget, I'd reshoot this movie and its sequels with Robin Williams as the main guy, because I think Robin Williams would make a great Santa. That said, this of the three is the best one, and Tim Allen is the best in this one.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not going to fix anything per the rules of our show with the casting. If I can say at the end of this one, oh, not to fix for this movie, but I'd cut off, it's 1994, I'd cut off Tim Allen's rights to be in the sequels and recast him. That was whatever. But I would slow the passage of time a little bit in the parts that are not Christmas.
Okay.
And because again, this movie is about the relationship with the son and how that grows over time, and how it evolves. Like, it starts out as like, okay, I'm leaving him with you for Christmas, and it evolves over the next year to the point where it's like a terrible crisis situation where like the cops are called because they think he kidnapped him at the end of the year. I felt watching this that the jump between Christmas 1, the first one, and like Thanksgiving before Christmas 2 was very jarring. There was not a lot of time spent there to develop the relationship. So shoot some insert scenes, do some more where Neil takes one side of the argument, and Tim Allen's character Scott Calvin takes another side of the argument, and Charlie is in the middle. Let that ebb and flow a little bit. Let that relationship breathe in the story, and make the movie 10 minutes longer by doing it. It's an hour 37. I looked it up. It's not that bad. I like this one the best of the three. Make it a little longer and make that passage of time pace a little better. It is a Christmas movie. Spend all the time you want at Christmas. But I feel like it was like this, and then it rushed around to the end of the year again. So yeah, I would lengthen the time that we show their relationship over the year. But that's just my opinion. What do you think?
I think it's interesting because they never give you an idea of when anything is happening.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit that happens where Tim Allen is transitioning into being the Santa Claus. He shows up in the gray sweatpants suit at work.
Mm-hmm.
He has this giant list delivered to his house. He has all of this kind of stuff happening. Charlie is shown like driving a pretend sleigh and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that one way that you could kind of solve that
Mm-hmm.
passage of time thing would just be having dates.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that you see like, okay, this is a month later. This is a month after that. This is a month after that. Because if you view the movie as, okay, it's after Christmas and then, oh, within like a
Mm-hmm.
month, he looks like Santa.
Yeah.
Boom, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I get what you're saying. Like, it's hard to know what is happening when.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I would be happy with extra scenes of funny stuff
Yeah.
happening because all of that stuff plays really well and is really well like shot and
Yeah.
it's funny. So you want to give me more? I'm on board.
I'd love to give you more. I mean, one thing, not just dates, you could do other major holidays in the year where as he's transferring into Santa, he understands the other ones less and less. Like they go through Valentine's Day, Easter, and then they get to like the 4th of July. And by then he's just like, what? You blow stuff up. Why don't we give people things for 4th of July? All this kind of stuff. So he starts to bring more and more of that perspective to every other part of the year. Other major holidays could be a fun way to do that too. But yeah, no, that's what I would do. I'd shoot some inserts like that. But yeah, that's just my fix. Dan, what would you fix about the Santa Claus? You've seen this movie a thousand million times. When you're watching it on average, you're like, oh, I changed this up. What would you fix?
So I'm very curious. Watching it 100,000 million times, I have
Yeah.
noticed an abandoned subplot in this movie, and I'm curious if upon viewing it once you picked up on it. So
Okay.
throughout this film, there are elves in and among kids.
Yes.
There's one at the beginning looking at kind of like a train through the shop window. There's a bunch of kids around. There's an elf. One of them turns around and has elf ears. There's another one
Okay.
when Tim Allen is at the soccer game in the park, and the kids are lining up to talk to Santa. One of them in line is an elf with elf ears, and probably the most obvious one is in the
Mm-hmm.
classroom scene, the career day scene. Which, side note, absolutely hilarious. One of the
Yeah.
darkest jokes in this movie when the teacher's like, "We're so sorry for your partner or whatever," because the fireman lost his partner.
Oh my
Anyway,
God. Yeah, no, that's probably what got the largest laugh out of me. And the exchange after that where he's like, my dad's Santa Claus, and he's like, I'm like Santa Claus after that. That was really cute. But I did not notice any of these three things.
yes. And in
Um,
that one, when he says, "I'm my dad's Santa Claus," all the kids laugh except one.
yeah,
That kid sits at the desk with like their hands up like this
yeah.
with an elf ear. So there are elves throughout this movie scattered around. It's like an abandoned subplot that somebody took the time to put them in and
Mhm.
then didn't do anything with, right?
Like they're keeping an eye on him or something like that. Like as he
Exactly. Yeah.
okay, okay, yeah,
So, and by the way, when I told my wife we were doing this,
yeah.
because she loves this movie to death, she was
Mhm.
like, don't change anything. Don't change anything. And then she was like, what are you going to change? And I was like, well, the elf thing. And she's like, oh, okay, that's weird. So I got her
Yeah.
approval on it. But
So
um,
would you remove that or would you bring that to completion?
I would bring it to completion. Show me. So in the scene when there it's Thanksgiving, Bernard shows
Mhm.
up. He gives Scott Calvin the snow globe, and he sees,
Mhm.
oh, everything. He remembers it. I
Mhm.
just want to add a little bit more to that scene where Tim Allen says, I don't know if I'm going to be a good Santa. And
Mhm.
Bernard can look at him and be like, we've been watching you this whole time
Mhm.
because I didn't think you'd be a good Santa either, quite frankly, but
Mhm.
you're going to be okay. And so
Yeah, okay.
and then you can show those past scenes, but do it in like sepia tone or whatever. Just
Yeah.
show like these elves keeping an eye on him the whole time, which is really
Mhm.
nice for eagle-eyed viewers like me. And it's cool because it picks back up on that thread. Like they had it, they shot it all, and then they were just like, who cares? And they didn't
Yeah.
do anything with it. So it gives Scott Calvin, the character, a moment of kind of reflection. It gives Bernard a moment to be like, hey, I didn't think he'd be good at this because he's very, very mean and stuff to him. And then he just gets to be like, you're going to be okay.
yeah, it kind of gives the audience a sigh of relief before the finale. Although there is a little bit of tension and this, in the second Christmas, and you don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off and all of this kind of stuff. And if the guy who's been kind of difficult about it the entire time comes in like a couple of scenes before that and says you're going to be fine, that's it diffuses that a little bit. It would be funny if he's like, we've been watching you this whole time, you're going to be fine, and then as he's leaving, he like an elf walks up to him and they're like, you told me he's going to be fine. He's like, yep, I lied. And then you get comedy and you still get tension at the end. Like, I feel like that would work pretty well.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. You can make it funny. Absolutely. He could totally be like, yeah, I lied. Bring back Judy for that moment. She's seeing someone and rapping, but bring back Judy at that moment. And
you told him he was going to be fine. Yeah, I lied. You got a problem with that? Yeah, that would be funny, I think. Yeah, that's a good fix. That's a good one.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. So, what do you think?
Well, usually you do the outro.
You do the outro this time. Thanks.
Yeah. So which fix did you like? Did you want to make the year and the passage of time a little bit more spaced out and give us some other major holidays where we can kind of delineate that passage of time, or do you want to sew up that subplot with a little bit of comedy? Get in the comments down in the doobly-doo thing. But yeah, in the meantime, like, subscribe, all of that bull crap, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.